start. Make sure that our stream is live and healthy. Give it to me, lady. You know I want it. Give me that sweet, sweet Pokerust. Okay, so we are live. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Let me just fiddle with my stuff here. Bloop, as I turn cameras and the like on, so that I can talk to you, my people, and we can discussions. All right, let's save it like that. Okay. How are you guys doing this Friday night? I am doing great, obviously, because I'm playing Pokemon Shield. So what's not great? Right? I don't know. Okay. There we go. Let this lady catch up to us. Okay. So, guys, welcome to the Tiger's Den. If you don't know who I am, I'm Chris. This is the Tiger's Den. We discuss Magic the Gathering Arena Online. We discuss Switch games, PlayStation games, the like. This is kind of an impromptu stream, because I'm literally just rolling around here, leveling up some Pokemon, which I know I don't have to. So before anyone comments about that, I want to just preface, this is just how I play Pokemon. I don't like to use candies or anything yet until I get into breeding and stuff later. I like to level up and grind a bit. It's calming to me, and to be quite honest with you, if there's new Pokemon in the game, it also gets me attached to the new roster, right? It gets me going. It's made easier now by the fact that I have a controller and can do this while watching things on my PC, which, by the way, is why I was not streaming earlier. So, what did I want to talk about? Excuse me, too, because I am on the literal, tail end. You'll notice, I'm just fine right now, but there's still just, a tiny bit of phlegm in my throat. So, why the discussion? Why the stream? I'm going to have a formal review of this game out. I'll probably post it on Monday. I'll probably record it, because that's what I'm going to spend my weekend doing. I'll probably record it Sunday evening and edit it and leave it to process and whatnot into the next day. So I wanted to discuss a few things, though, because I have been commenting, not through the Tiger's Den channel, but through a few other places, pretty ferociously in defense of this game on, let's just call it what it is. Bad journalism. If you want to use the title fake news, do you? But bad journalism for sure. And clickbait. Now, I'm going to call out a couple of people specifically. And, they're pretty prominent YouTubers that I watch that are to my understanding, decent dudes. But Max Dreamcast guy is, it's weird because he is the, smallest viewership of any of the YouTube people that I usually dig other than OJ. And he is the most clickbaity, most, I just say whatever to pander to this audience, and his Pokemon stuff has been no different. So first off, if you don't know who Max is, he's Dreamcast guy. He posts this video, it was a week and a half ago or whatever, about Pokemon's having all of these major graphical issues, blah, 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 based on a hacked, run of the game. essentially. This guy had a hacked version of the game. Dude had 900 Master Balls. Would not have taken you that hard, like that much time, to just maybe evaluate what content you're watching before you tell people, like, gospel, this is for real. And so he posts some BS about, like, oh, they've got a massive problem, the game is terrible and it's broken. And listen, the game has its issues, and I'm here to say I do not want to defend any publisher for putting out a game that has known issues or has glaring issues like the autosave glitch that some people experienced with Pokemon Sword and Shield. I have not experienced it. I've been fine. Of course, that's anecdotal evidence, too, so I'm not saying it's not present, I'm just saying I haven't experienced it, so whatever. I also heard that Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was related to anecdotal evidence. I heard Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 had, like, massive issues with some people in certain regions and the game card failing. Well, I just had to have Team Ninja replace my game card because I experienced that issue. And so why is this important? Because, like, watching Digital Foundry is a good example. They have no agenda, Digital Foundry, okay? And I think they put it best in their video. This game has no technical issues. It really doesn't. It runs at 30 frames per second. It's pretty solid. Expressed issues are overly exaggerated by a pretty toxic portion, I think, of a fan base for what is the largest, entertainment enterprise in the world. And it's not that the game has any real technical issues. It's not that the game is bad. It's not even that the game looks bad, because it really doesn't. I'm playing on a 32-inch monitor, and I think, like, Sun and Moon, any of these other Pokemon games look like hot trash in comparison. So I wanna say that for starters. It's just, yay, Hoot Hoot. I love Hoot Hoot, by the way. I am confused why there's so many birds in this game. Like, there are a lot of birds in this game. I gotta keep my flying, so we're gonna dump Reflect. I use Reflect at least anyways. But yeah, this game, like Digital Foundry is saying, there are no real problems with it. The only real problem is that it didn't meet or exceed your expectations. To which I would say, it's a Pokemon game. It's the same thing I give people when they talk about Assassin's Creed. Now, I'll tell you, Assassin's Creed Syndicate is probably one of my favorite Assassin's Creeds in games of all time. I actually did find the characters and the story and all of it to be very enjoyable, very likable. I loved so much about that game. I gotta go rest Hoot Hoot before I just toss them back in a box. And why do Assassin's Creed games come out, literally like every year for a while? And some of them were hits, some of them were misses. I feel like, here's the thing though, coming from board games as well, you're going to have hits and misses regardless of whether you put a game out every year, every other year, every 5 years. A good example of this for me is, I enjoyed Red Dead Redemption 1. I thought it was an okay game. I thought Red Dead Redemption 2 was terrible, and everyone loved it. So to me, that was a huge miss, and they took their sweet ass time working on that game. Now, that's not in defense of any of the things that are actually wrong with Pokemon, and I'm going to get into what I think is actually wrong with the game thus far playing through. Now, I do want to point out, because of the way I play, look at that. I have 10 hours. I'm not even in the first gym. Because I slow crawl these. I literally catch every unique thing I can see, and then I level it up. I don't catch the higher evolutions, because if you want the best Pokemon, you're probably going to end up breeding. So, I'm gonna get my dudes, I'm gonna level them up, and then I'm gonna breed. That's just, that's usually the way the way I enjoy a Pokemon game. So, back off. But in complete seriousness, say like that's my jam. That's my Butterfree. I got that, dude. I'll probably catch one of the Gigantamax ones, though, because I gotta get a Gigantamax one. And of course, I have an Eevee already, and that Eevee is from my Let's Go. Yeah, let's use you. Let's get it popping with you. I have a couple of him, because, of course, if I am remembering my Pokemon correctly, he is the one that turns into Hitmonlee, Hitmonchamp, and Hitmontop, I believe it is. So, you know, you're going to need multiples of them. And the ones that I do will be based on, like, whose special attack is highest. That's going to have to be the Chan, which one has got, you know, get it going. I love Zigzagoon. He's such a goofy looking Pokemon. He reminds me of my dog, except for he's, you know, white and black. My dog's all black. Anyway, all going back to what I was saying, though, the game has problems. It just doesn't necessarily meet your expectations. And that's perfectly fine to say. Like, giving the game a rating, because here are going to be my qualifiers before I jump into what the game does really right and really wrong. Okay? First off, the National Dex incident. I talked about this multiple times. If we're going to put it frank, it's BS. You know, it doesn't thematically make sense in any way as to why you get to carry your Pokemon. Now, the National Dex thing, I know for a lot of people personally that I've talked to, it falls in line with how many hours they've spent building that competitive team. But here's the thing. The ceiling for competitive was lowered so much for this game, and that it's easier to get into. Because Game Freak and Nintendo Company, or Game Freak, Pokemon Company, Nintendo, they're starting to understand that if they want people to play competitive, they want competitive Pokemon to actually be a thing, the ceiling has to get lower. You cannot be forced to spend some 90 hours in the game breeding and whatnot to have a competitive team. That's not realistic. No one's going to want to do that, and it's never going to get anywhere. Could you imagine if I told you, like, yeah, to have a competitive Overwatch team, you guys need 90 hours? And no, you can just pick up and play that. I don't like Overwatch, but I'm just saying, like, you can pick up and play that. Paladins, that's the same way. League, you know what I mean? Like, any of these competitive games, it's ridiculous if I told you, like, yeah, it's really fun, but the investment's, like, just about 100 hours. I would be out immediately. Any reasonable person would be. So then looking at tinkering and balancing that, spot on. And to not understand that is just like willful ignorance is the best way that I can put it. So anyway, yeah, the National Dex, that could be a reason that you don't care for the game, because there's only 400 instead of 900. And from what I understand looking at the decks thus far, so far, Litten and Bulbasaur are not in the game. Neither is Mudkip. So my 3 MVPs are not in the game. I have not made a rant video crying about this, because it's going to be okay. Saba was growing on me a little bit, and the game does have, some of the others that I like. Like, it does have my Butterfree. It does have, not the Butterfree's like one of my all-time faves, but I do have a soft spot for Butterfree. And the game's got Hoot Hoot. Like, that's, if you're gonna have a bird Pokemon, Hoot Hoot is my jam. Yeah, it's got a lot of good Pokemon in it. So there's, and I'll say this, I understand this is a frustration, but there's always EVs, guys. There's always EVs. So you can always have a team with every, quintessential type. But moving past that, I understand that. People are talking about models being reused. Listen, Game Freak's kind of already been over this. This whole they had to create everything from scratch thing is a complete misinterpretation of the original Famitsu article. If you read through that article and translate it correctly from people who speak the language, not Google Translate, that's not what they're talking about. They're not talking about literally like every model from previous Pokemon games. So it's like, oh, yep, let's just delete that and make a whole new one. No, some of the frames obviously were able to be transferred and some weren't. And even the frames that were able to be transferred, like I use Pikachu as an example, all the textures and the coloring and the way that they structure them here is different. The animations are different because this is a true 3D engine. It's not the same as the garbage DS, machines. It's just different. But no, you're right. It doesn't mean that they literally took a brush, erased every part of the Pikachu model, and then brought in, a brand new Pikachu model. That's ridiculous. That game would have come like 10 years from now. So, that's crazy. But overall, I think, yeah, I do think it's probably the best. I do think it's the best Pokemon to date. I don't think there's any question of that, sir. And it's just fun. It's just fun. A new environment, restricting the decks, that sort of stuff is just, it's better. It's healthier. You knew you were going to get to the point with Pokemon where there were right now there's 900-ish. So you knew you were going to get to the point where it was not sustainable to have 8, 900 in an entire campaign. That's crazy. Okay. And so other points that I would make to the negatives would be the difficulty. And I understand that everyone is going to have thoughts on difficulty. People are going to have thoughts for difficulty in pretty much every game. One game that I'll reference straight up is Pokemon Red, Blue. Listen, I played those when I was 9, and they were not any more difficult for me at 9 than this game is for me in my 30s. So I'm really confuzzled by the people claiming and clamoring for apparently a harder game that, if we're being honest, none of them have ever been. Now, I've heard people say X and Y was really hard. You know what? I've watched gameplay just to make sure, because I did not play X and Y. It does not seem so. The last couple of generations have used pretty much the same features that this one has. If you're saying XP share is, on, and that makes it easier, does it? Because in my mind, XP share is really minor. XP share is, does it make the game less grindy a little bit? Sure. But does it make the game grindless? No. The game still features the same grind you know and love, hence me taking, all this time to like actually grind out all the starting area Pokemon. Like there's nothing crazy about that. I don't want to say it's the same, but it's very similar. And, to say anything otherwise is really disingenuous, is the best word that I can use. So I don't understand that criticism at all. Let me just check my sound. There we go. Yeah, it's really disingenuous. So the other thing that I would jump into would be, I guess people could be upset at who's in the game, like which Pokemon made the cut. And, could we survive a game without Pikachu? I mean, we could, but I think the fan base as a whole, there's a reason that Pikachu and Eevee are essentially like the faces. It would be like saying, can WrestleMania, when I was growing up, get by without The Rock? I mean, sure, but it's The Rock. And, that's kind of the same here. Like, could you get by, with a Pokemon generation that didn't have the Eevee and Evolutions? Could you get by with one that didn't have Pikachu? I mean, I'm sure you could. But, why? Why? If you can have them in and it helps them sell copies and make money, why? It seems weird to me that anyone would request it. And so that gets me to like the final negative that I can think of, which is whiny baby whiners and their changes. Every Pokemon generation seems to be the same thing. We need innovation. But then if you look at like the Let's Go series, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee had some really big deviations from Pokemon as a whole. And every single one of those deviations, except for maybe riding around on the belly of a Snorlax, which is just sublime, every single one of them was met with constant criticism from whiny baby whiner fans who, oh no, they innovated the game in ways I didn't think that I wanted. And it breaks my heart because it's like, these people spend... this is their life. Pokemon is their life. You can see that from pretty much every interview that, like, this is their jam. This is literally what they do. They get up and they do this thing. And then to see people shit all over it with, like, oh no, there's experience share and I can't turn it off. Like, calm down. I'm not leveling up very fast. I have XP share on, and I'm just looking to get everyone to one level before I move on. Like, I don't think that's I'm gonna say I don't think that's a valid criticism or even thing to say out of your mouth. I don't get it. So all of this comes down to, watching Max Dreamcast Guy's review, and this ridiculous, like, he gives it a 7 out of 10 for starters, which in your mind doesn't seem like a bad score, but then doesn't understand what that score means because he spends the whole review dumping on the game with either stuff that's verifiably proven to be false, like the guy who hacked the game, right? He's using that as a platform to be like, the game has a lot of really huge technical issues, like this, this, and this. And it's nothing he's experienced. It's stuff that this hacker did, who was clearly hacking it to do that. Like, literally trying to manipulate bad press for Game Freak. So, that's like the preface of what his review was. And then, again, his disappointment to, like, the difficulty. Okay, name me the Pokemon game that actually challenged you. Like, really as a gamer, Dark Souls style, made you sit up and figure out how to live. Because I, for the life of me, can't. You know, even black and white, even silver and gold. Like, I mean, these are not hard games. They're not hard by any means. And the idea that they are is, like I said, it's just disingenuous and weird. So I don't know. And then his complaints about like the Pokemon in the game were really funny because I mean you could do that with any generation outside of Gen 1 and 2. I feel like you could do that with pretty much any generation. Say like, yeah, they're weird or boring or blah Pokemon in the game, and it's like that's like your opinion, man. You know, you're allowed to have an opinion, but it's also pretty like fundamentally subjective or wrong depending on who you're talking to. And it's what did you want? Like, I mean, there's all the the 150 are obviously like when they put or 151, right? When they put out the originals, it was like this is in their mind the best ideas that they had. And so then you look at like Gen 2 and moving forward, and it's like each time they're putting no one's making a Pokemon thinking like, oh yeah, this will just fill deck spot, 431. Like, no, they're making the best Pokemon that they believe they can make. And if this one doesn't fit your taste, then it doesn't. Like, this one I'm using right now is real blah. My daughter thinks it's a weird looking pig. Which, I mean, if we're being honest, it's a Swinub. It's a pig. Right? It's a little pig. Let's see. Let's put out our Trubbish. Oh, see, and I hate Trubbish. He's a stupid Pokemon. I don't like him, but I guarantee you there's someone out there that's like, he doesn't like Trubbish. No, I don't. See? Subjective. I think Arcanine is overrated, and Growlithe, and everyone loves him. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's got their own tastes. There's supposed to be a Pokemon for everyone. It's not that every Pokemon is supposed to be specifically for you. Again, that would be weird. So his entire review then is also slapping around the wild area, which just blows my mind because of everything in this game. I've explored the wild area I don't want to say very little. I wasted a lot of time running around the wild area, catching a couple of different kinds of Pokemon, picking up items. Check out Austin John Plays. His channel's got a lot of great guides on picking up items. And I fell in love with it. I thought, what if, and this is just my thought here, okay, this is not what I expect to see. What if all of Pokemon was like the wild area? Like, what if that's the next step? What if the next step in the next Pokemon is that the whole map is treated like the wild area? Because follow my logic here. So they've got this engine built for the Switch now. The engine is only going to improve. And what I mean by that is they're going to know the limits and what they can and can't do, right, with that engine. And once they know that, then it's kind of like every other Pokemon game, right, where the first one on a generation is a pretty good game, and the second one is usually better. Now, I know a lot of people were like, well, Let's Go was their first game on this, on this system. I'm not sure if that's something that I would just accurately say, because I do believe that it's a different engine, it's a different graphics style, it's a different team. So I want to talk about the main series. And yeah, what if the second one is just vastly improved? I honestly believe that will be the case. So then what if the whole thing could just be the wild area, right? Where you have the roaming biomes and the Pokemon appearing there. I feel like we're kind of over this whole, I'm not saying it's, again, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I feel like a lot of people are kind of over the whole, Route A, Route C, and that sort of thing, and them just being a literal pathway to walk through that essentially forces you to fight 6 to 10 NPC trainers, maybe that's just my opinion, but that is kind of a consensus that I see in my circles, as it were. And oh, that's not great. Yeah. And so what if the whole thing was the wild area? His criticisms on the wild area, by the way, 0 of them were valid. Like, everything he said, like, almost like a checklist, I could be like, well, that's not true. That's not true. That's not accurate. That's not true. And that was the weird part of it for me, is like, I feel like there are some YouTubers who just, they feel like because IGN has a video review out 2 days before the game comes out, they have to rush their video out in response because, God forbid, they get scooped by other YouTubers. And I have to be honest, I don't think that's a way to make quality content. I don't believe that it is. Ooh, this one's glowing. I think it's a wasp on this gentleman. Or lady. Could be a lady Growlithe. I have no idea. God, Growlithe's skill is just a powerhouse skill in this game. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure why people feel the need to post super factually inaccurate stuff. By the way, I did get asked, are the animations in this game much improved? And you know what? Compared to the 3DS, yes, they are all improved. But the 3DS, and I want to stress this because people keep making it out like the 3DS is some sort of amazing machine, like a modern marvel. The 3DS is shit. It's a terrible system with horrible limitations. Every game on there pretty much looks like garbage. And maybe that's because I'm comparing them to the PSP, or even the Vita. Like, the 3DS just looks terrible. It looks like something my child would pick up and be like, bleh. Because he's seen what good graphics look like, and that ain't it. So, when they say, God dang, man. When they say stuff like, yes, the graphics and everything here improved from the 3DS, that is not a lie. I just feel like one of two things. Either people thought that the 3DS was the cat's pajamas and is the best looking system of all time. They're wrong. Or people were expecting, like, the animations in Detective Pikachu, the movie, like, transplanted into a game, which is also just ridiculous and probably not even possible at this point, unless Pokemon Company said we're dropping this thing on a PS Pro. Which, cool, do that, but otherwise, what the heck? I've not had, and here's where I'm going to say the game does some stuff bad, okay? One, I don't need any hand-holding. I love that there's no tutorial, for the most part. Like, the tutorial is sort of, like, sprinkled into some of the intro stuff. But I don't like that there's no real tutorial on... Do I want Fairy Swipes? Yes. Good. Actually... Yeah. Goodbye. Goodbye, Scratch. Do I want a tutorial? Absolutely not. But do I think that tutorials on some of the stuff would be helpful? Absolutely. So I think as the game goes on, I'll kind of see what features are and aren't, and I've kind of been making notes of them on my paper. What features are and aren't discussed, and the length in which they are discussed. Dynamaxing was kind of glossed over really quick. Same with Gigantamaxing. In fact, I don't even know if they've brought that up yet, outside of how to get a Gigantamax Butterfree. But, maybe that's not a bad thing. Like I said, every Pokemon's been pretty easy like pretty easy streets. So there's no real like, oh my god, I can't believe they took out the tutorials. Now this game's impossible. It's not Monster Hunter, for God's sakes. And I do think that, yes, the gated paths like this, like you just see, this feels dated to have this little gated path. And that's not a bad thing. It's a staple of the Pokemon series, and I'm at peace with that. I think I need to start using Mazigazoon so that it catches up. And Stunky. Yeah, it's a staple of the series. So I'm not gonna crap on it when it's a staple of the series. But I will say that I am kind of over it, personally. I joke with a few people that Breath of the Wild kind of wrecked people for the simple fact of this whole, like, my son. He wants to go everywhere and climb everything, and so playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, there are gated paths like there are in Pokemon, and it was like, I need to go through that door. Well, son, you can't go through that door. You can tell that by looking at the map. I need to go through the door. Yeah, that's not possible. So I just feel like we're kind of at that place where we can remove the gated stuff. Let's talk about the game and what it does really well, though, because I feel like there's so much to cover here. I'm going to go fast. Let me take a drink. We'll talk about the stuff it does really well so far. Then we'll talk about something it does ridiculous story-wise at the end. Poison Dark, yeah, okay. We'll swap both. Okay, so Pokemon design in this game. Old and new. Does them great. And again, that's from someone who, like, looking at the 3DS stuff, I think it looks like trash. Like, anything on the 3DS, I think looks like absolute trash. And I think everything here looks really good. So that's plus number 1. Plus number 2, I like the added customization stuff for your trainer. I think that's a huge boon to the series, and, I liked it in Let's Go as well. Though in Let's Go, I didn't like that the unlock method for a lot of them was pricey or bland. Complete the boat and all the stuff on the boat, and then get the sailor outfit. It was just kind of like, really? Anyway, so I like that. Minor things. Okay, quality of life stuff, though. Being able to access the Pokébox wherever you are, that is a necessity. If they ever remove that, that is a feature that never should be removed again. It's phenomenal. Being able to, this is a minor quality of life thing, but something I think that's important. Being able to relearn old moves. Mwah! That is beautiful. If you, for instance, get a move to replace a move, and then realize later down the road you miss, say, Reflect or Recycle or things like that, I love the ability to just go back and do that thing. I think the intro to this game is probably the best intro to a Pokemon game since the original generation. Because the original generation also did not have a whole lot of hand-holding. If you recall, the original generation was like, go, it's your birthday or whatever, go see Professor Oak. Oh, Professor Oak is not here, go to the grass. Oh, there's Professor Oak, now let's get a Pokemon. And now go fight Brock. That's literally like how the first one started. And it was, yes, we'll be teaching you Headbutt, good God. Let's get rid, oddly, of Sand Attack, because I find Sand Attack to be very, coin tosses whether it works or not here the way I want it to. And so yeah, I think the tutorial here, the early game, is probably as best as it's ever been. I've heard people say that it's like 20 hours into the actual story that you get to your first gym. Good on it. Speaking of gyms, another plus, I love the version exclusive gyms. So I have Ice, Ghost, and Fairy, and Fire has like fighting and some other ones. And Sword is dumb. Just kidding. But I have Larvitar. So, Shield has Larvitar in it. Can't go wrong. And if you're gonna have two different versions of the game, I think it's important that they keep doubling down on the idea of the Pokemon community and the games being different. Because otherwise, why have two games? Why not just have Pokemon Sword and Shield and it's one game? I don't think they'd ever do that, but I'm just saying, like, you know, you should if there's not going to be actual differences between the two games, which, let's face it, at times there was. Going back to, like, Red and Blue, there were, like, what, 9 Pokemon that you couldn't get in one or the other, which was just kind of weird, you know? It wasn't even cool, it was just kind of weird. But yeah, let's just headbutt. It was just kind of weird. So, version exclusives, double down on that, keep going. I actually like the legendaries. I'm one of those weird people. I love the shield wolf. I think he looks awesome. So, you know, good on him for having interesting legendaries right off the bat. Not having integration with the Pokeball Plus, kind of weird. So I'm going to be looking at the next Pokemon Let's Go game, and if there's not integration with that, like, at the time it was a $50 Pokeball, I'm going to be a little cheesed off. And, you know, wonder about the ethics of selling those kind of third-party products that are really like, okay, so you have Pokemon Let's Go, which is a game that did not function very well with a single Joy-Con. But it functioned really well if you had the Pokeball Plus. So now you need to spend more money because you have to get that Pokeball Plus to really feel the game the way they wanted you to feel it. Okay. That's awesome. If using that Pokeball Plus helps you beyond Pokemon Go and beyond Pokemon Let's Go, like if it's literally a Pokemon that has a service and a function in Pokemon games moving forward that are on the Switch, as that's what the accessory is designed for, I'm all for that. But if it's only compatible with Pokemon Go and Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee, I'm going to be a little wonked out. Now, there are rumors that they're remaking to the older, I believe it was like Diamond and Pearl, next with the C team at the company. If that's true, I genuinely hope that they're smart enough to drop in that, you know, that special Pokeball Plus stuff, because otherwise you're just gonna irritate me with the fact that you didn't consider. Some people did spend $60 on that device. And I know, you can get it apparently on Black Friday for pretty cheap for this game, and pull the Mew from it. Which I'll say Mew's really cool, but seems like a weird thing. Maybe that's just me, but it seems like a weird thing. I actually really like the experience share. I'm going to be one of the outliers on that. I'm going to say I really like the experience share. I'm going to say the experience share is actually pretty important, because there are 400 Pokemon in this game. You are bringing a bunch of new people into the series and the genre with the Switch, because the Switch is a home console. A lot of people don't own DSs. I didn't own a DS because the idea of owning this, like, dumpy little poor graphic portable console from Nintendo sounded terrible. The prospect of that sounded terrible to me. So yeah, I'd rather get it on a home console. It's on a home console. That home console could technically be taken on the go, but it's taken on the go with really good graphics. So I'm on board with that. There are going to be a lot of people that then are on board with that, just based on feedback alone and based on early sales predictions for, like, the numbers for this game. So kudos to them. You need the XP share for those players. You do. Because grinding is, you know, grinding is a thing. It's a thing in pretty much every Pokemon game, and it's okay. I don't want to say we've all come to terms with it. Like I said, I relax. I like grinding it out a bit here and there. So I'm perfectly good with that. And I will say, I don't think the game would have won. Here's what I'll say. Having XP share on at the start of the game fine idea. And I think it's important for the general public to have it in the game. My only question is, why couldn't they have just had a lever to turn it off? You would have alleviated so many criticisms from so many people about the XP share if you had just given them the option to turn it off. Now, I can get on board with, I understand, and I will defend to my death the limited Pokedex stuff, but the idea of removing the choice to share XP amongst my Pokemon is, I mean, it's kind of weird. Maybe I want to spend 300, hours grinding. If I want to do that, I should have the option to do that. Technically, you could. You would just have to remove all of the Pokemon from your party that you don't want to level up. Which, you crazy. Straight up, you crazy. So, if that's what you want to do, do it. But, you're weird. And that's okay. I actually think the roster thus far, now, while you're seeing me play at the beginning of the game, understand that yes, I have been in the wild area, so I've seen a good portion of the large, and I may or may not have watched some videos on Leaksies, because I don't care about spoilers. I never have. I think the roster of Pokemon in the game is pretty solid. Yes, it's 400, it's rumored to be like 435 when everything's said and done, but you know what? Honestly, this whole incessant, I need to be able to bring them from game to game, like I said. Catching, let's assume everything on average has 1.5 evolutions. Catching essentially 140-ish Pokemon. That's still a lot, and then having to grind and build them up. That's a ton of content for me. I'm good. That's, I'm good with all that. And I believe we are nearing... no, I see you, outlier. Get in here and replace you, mate. We'll just, I guess, when these guys hit 15, we'll just keep them and keep pushing them. These two slowpokes. So yeah, I'm good with that. I actually am going to say from the early part of the game, I like the new professor and I like the new story. I really like the new region. I think the UK as an influence is a great idea because I do think that it has, different, especially using the wild area the way they have, the different biomes definitely makes sense. So yeah, I do think that's a huge positive for the game. Overall, at the end of the day, I've said this multiple times online. So far for me, this is the best Pokemon game. This is the best Pokemon game I've ever played. This is the best Pokemon game I've ever seen footage of. And at the end of the day, I don't mean to burst anyone's Dexit bubbles or complaints, but at the end of the day, that's really how we are supposed to be grading these to an extent. Is this an improvement on everything that's come before? So I'm going to use Assassin's Creed as another example. I harshly look at Assassin's Creed 3, and I say this wasn't as good as Assassin's Creed Revelations or Brotherhood or 2. This was not an improvement. Some of the gameplay features were really good, and I'm glad some have stayed around. I look at Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, and I say, oh my god, this is worse than 3, which was worse than 2, which was worse than Revelations, which, right, which was worse than Brotherhood. I look at that and I say, okay, so this is massive regressions. And then Unity was it was better than Black Flag from a game perspective, but from a technical perspective, it definitely was the worst put together game in the series. Then you get to Syndicate, which was a massive improvement over all of those, going all the way back to the Ezio series. And then Assassin's Creed Origins, worse than all of them, going back to, Black Flag. And then, yeah, the Odyssey, which is just like a wholly different game. This Antiquities stuff that Ubisoft is doing is just killing me. I don't feel like an assassin. And then I look at the Pokemon series along those same kind of criteria. I feel more like a trainer now with the Pokemon camping, with the playing with my Pokemon, with the Pokemon just having so much more life brought to them here than those pixels on the DS, man. And I just think, yeah, this is the best Pokemon I've seen, played, blank, thus far. And I'm not an early prediction, but I just don't see a wild 180 coming out of the blue halfway through this game. Now, I went into this game with very, tampered expectations, similar to, the new Star Wars game in EA, right? You go in being very hesitant about, is this game gonna be great? And I think at the end of the day, yeah, that's the side that I come down on, is I believe this Pokemon is the best Pokemon to date. I believe it's a great game. And when people... One of the things I guess I've seen people complain about is the added price. And I'm just going to say, I highly doubt Game Freak is sitting in their offices like, I can't wait to charge $60 for this. Pokemon has always been a franchise that's played on portable. Unless they took 4 years, like Breath of the Wild, literally from the ground up, tearing everything down and remaking it. Which with a franchise like Pokemon, it's not reality. Unless they did that, there's no way you're going to get anything beyond the incremental improvements that each Pokemon makes. And I'll say it, this is the best Pokemon game to date. Before that, Let's Go. I'm sorry, Sun and Moon lovers, or X and Y lovers. Let's Go is just a more refined, better game than those. Is it super easy? Sure, because it's a remake of Red and Blue or Yellow, and those were pretty easy too. But the games just get better. They do. They look better and they get better. And if that's not of your opinion, I would say that's a feeling thing, not a factual thing. And that's where I start to get a little bent out of shape, because it's impossible to argue your feelings with facts if you're just going to ignore facts with said feelings. So yeah, it's irritating. I get irritable about it. And I have been discussing this for an hour. Good Lord. So when it comes down to it, though, what I'm going to say about Pokemon, and this is where I'm going to start to wrap it up. What I have to say is that I am all about Sword and Shield. I have no doubt in my mind that these games will succeed. I have no doubt in my mind that these are the best Pokemon games released to date. Just factually. Like I said, not even based on opinion, just factually. The nostalgia is real with me. I love the Pokemon that I grew up with. But I think these are better. Toxic Spikes, that's right. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I don't like Trubbish. Does he have cool poison moves, though? Goddamn right he does. Okay, so yeah, this has been my long, complicated thoughts on Pokemon Sword and Shield, which I'll say again is the best Pokemon to date. And if you agree or disagree, regardless, I'd love to have a discussion with you about it. So if you have the time, be sure to hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe while Ben and I try to grow this tiny little channel that we put our, minuscule spare time into. And be sure to drop a comment. Agree or disagree. Let's have a discussion about it. Regardless of whether you think it's the best Pokemon to date or not, it's still fun to talk about, and it's still fun to not agree to disagree, but have a discussion about it. So thank you for joining me on this Saturday night, and we will speak again soon. I'm going to continue grinding until, of course, all my guys hit 15, and then we'll